Hurricane Dorian continues to inch toward Florida, and the climate change people continue to blame the United States. Right. Plus, the Democrats, they're going to have their next showdown in Houston. We're going. We're going to take the showdown to them. I'm Randall Terry. Welcome to Voice of Resistance. Welcome to the broadcast, friend. We used to live in St. Augustine, Florida, and that is one of the areas that is potentially going to get hammered. They still don't know where this hurricane is going to hit. Our hearts go out to the people in the Bahamas. As of this recording, there are 5 known deaths, and frankly, God rest their souls, but I'm shocked that the number is that low, considering the strength of this hurricane. It is still creeping along at 1 or 2 miles an hour. There are over 1 million people who are under an order of evacuation on the east coast of Florida. We just have to wait and see what happens. I know that most people in the country aren't really focused on it because we don't live in the path of the hurricane. We have invited 3 different families who are close friends of ours that are right there in Flagler County or St. John County, and we've invited them to come and to stay with us. We'll see what happens. It is interesting to me as we watch this hurricane unfold how politicized even hurricanes have become, sadly, and there are people that are making statements that are just not true, that this is the most horrific hurricane ever on record, or this is the worst hurricane season ever. If you listen to the undertones and the overtones, this weather now has been politicized, and they want us to believe that the use of fossil fuels and the abuse of fossil fuels, specifically by Americans, is why hurricanes are coming at us at a rate that has never been seen before. It's just not true. We lived in St. Augustine in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 8, 2003 to 2008. And I believe it was either 4 or 5 where we had 4 hurricanes hit our home. That was before anyone was claiming that it was all our fault. 4 hurricanes hit our home. Thankfully, the houses along the coastal areas are built today with today's specs that they are required by law to be able to withstand hurricane force winds. So I have some personal history with hurricanes, have friends that are facing it right now. But the simple fact of the matter, I don't use this program, I rarely use this program to talk about the earth worshipers. The people who want to say that the earth is collapsing around us. First it was global warming, then global cooling. Now, since they can't get their facts straight, or since one season will come and debunk their latest theory, they simply now call it climate change. 2 things. Number 1, we only have record of weather, and depending on what year we're talking about, the number of hurricanes, the force of the winds, the records don't go back very far. I mean, there's a record of a earthquake that happened here in Memphis. I believe it was the early 1800s, where the Mississippi River for quite a while flowed north. And people thought it was the end of the world. There were massive conversions, revivals were breaking out, people were committing their lives to Christ and repenting. But crazy things have been happening. Mount St. Helens, I mean, there's just been stuff happening in the weather. Don't mention the flood, by the way, and what that did to our atmosphere as God changed the way the world functions, eliminating the canopy that was over the world and splitting up the continents. The simple fact of the matter, I believe, is that, number 1, America is not to blame for this. Smog, we used to have huge problems in some of our major cities. We have altered the way emissions work in automobiles and in buses, and we are one of the cleanest nations in the world in regard to our water and in regard to our carbon monoxide emissions. If you want to look at places that are still in a real crisis, go to China and go to India. That'd be 2 places where you could go where there are well over 2 billion people, and they don't have the standards that we have, all right? And of course, we don't see people blaming the Chi-Coms or India for these problems. And the reason is because much of the current earth worshiping, climate change movement is comprised of socialists and communists. This is simply a fact. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, a lot of these people decided that the way they would attack American economic superiority was to try and get us to self-destruct our own economy with something like the Green New Deal. If you look at what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and these lunatics on the left are proposing as far as eliminating fossil fuels and retrofitting every home in America, the devastation that it would wreak on our economy and the way we live, our standard of living, is unthinkable. But that's what the communists have always wanted. They wanted not to take us down a notch, they want to take us down 10 notches. And they want American superiority to be eliminated and to be a thing of the past. And so many of them have turned their focus on America, turned their guns on America, not in military quarrels, but blaming us for fossil fuel emissions and the climate change that they say is a harbinger of the end of the world. The end of the world. Now, Obama's in the middle of buying a $15 million property, I think in Martha's Vineyard, right there on the ocean. So evidently, he's not that worried. I mean, former President Obama is President Obama is parroting some of these lines of the Green New Deal about climate change being the most horrific, incredible, end of the world scenario, existential threat that we face. It's all bogus. It's bogus. And the proof is that he's about to spend $15 million in an area that would be eliminated if what they're saying is true. So they're hypocrites. They're hypocrites on fences because the wealthy in the left wing, they have fences around their houses. They're hypocrites regarding gun control because the wealthy and the powerful have armed guards with them at all times. They don't want us to have guns. They don't want America to have a fence, but they want fences and guns. And they want to tell us to not use fossil fuels while they drive around in their Cadillac Escalades and take private planes to talk about climate change. I mean, this is what's going on with these people. So our hearts go out to the people in Florida. But it disgusts me to see these people who loathe the United States of America as it was, not as it is, but as it was. It disgusts me to see them, whether it's in regard to borders or guns or climate or what kind of cars we drive. They are hypocrites. It disgusts me, and it should disgust you as well. Lord, save us from our enemies, and God, please strengthen our friends. I'll be right back. There's something I want to talk to you about President Trump that I think you're going to find very interesting. Please stay with me. And Elizabeth Warren, too. Don't go away. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. I was talking with a close friend the other night at length on the phone and then exchanging emails about President Trump and his divisiveness. And I am going to say that President Trump is divisive. I'm divisive. And he's a devout Christian, and he was saying, and he's in the media, by the way, which is also interesting. And he was saying, look, you know, President Trump is just so divisive. I agree with him on some issues, but his personality is so divisive, and he's always picking a fight. he said, show me where Jesus said something like that. Show me a red letter. And I texted or I emailed him and I cut out a couple of passages from 2 Gospels where Jesus said, I did not come to bring peace on earth. I came to bring division. I did not come to bring peace on earth. I came to bring a sword. So there's something for everyone, people. There's something for everyone in the Gospels. And I say that only partially tongue-in-cheek. The places where division happens is over the authority of God, the authority of his word, and hence ethics, public policy. But beyond that, he was asking me about the fact that my sons and I are taking these trips and we're singing songs, CNN sucks and Trump's going to thump them. And so he said to me, look, I get that you're wanting to stand against child killing. I get that. But on these other issues, are you concerned that your family just is like political partisan hacks? Fighting for Donald Trump, fighting for Republicans, when Donald Trump is so mean and so divisive. And I thought about it for a long time. And here is the gist of what I said to him. And I hope that this provokes some thought in you and that you consider how you discuss Donald Trump and the issues that we're facing between the Democrat and the Republican parties. I've been a Democrat. I've been an independent. I didn't vote for Bob Dole in 96. I wrote in Alan Keyes. I have been a fierce, outspoken critic of the Republican establishment for years, literally decades, okay? Principle first, then party. All right, now, having said that, what I said to him was, and I'm saying to you, number one, there's a hierarchy of good and evil. Don't believe anybody who tells you that all sins are equal. They're not. And I don't care if they're misquoting a passage of the Bible from the book of James. All sins are not equal. They're not equal in their gravity. They're not equal in their impact. They're not equal in the eyes of God. John, the gospel writer, wrote, he said, there are sins that are not unto death and there are sins that are unto death. Jesus in the gospel talked about people receiving so many lashes for things in hell and fewer lashes for other things. The punishment is not the same. The gravity is not the same. The impact around us is not the same. The punishment in time is not the same. There are punishments in the scriptures for certain sins. There are certain sins for which there are no punishments. Covetousness. It's idolatry. It's internal. All right? So don't believe it when someone tells you that all sins are equal, just because they're not. They're just not. All right, but setting that discussion and debate aside, there is a hierarchy of good and evil. Murder is the worst. That's what the Bible teaches, the sin that cries out to God. Sodomy is a sin that cries out to God. Slavery, abusing workers, abusing orphans and widows. These are sins that cry out to heaven. Now, recently, a Hollywood elitist said, show me a verse in the Bible that says you can own a gun. Now, it's a stupid challenge. Show me a verse in the Bible that says we can fly. Show me a verse in a plane. Show me a verse in the Bible that says we have a right to drive a car. Show me a verse in the Bible that says we have the right to talk on a telephone. It's a stupid challenge because it ignores the fact that the scriptures were written at a time when we didn't have certain technological advances. Having said that, there are principles in the scriptures that we can and should apply to today. All right? When Lot was kidnapped, Abraham rescued him with what? 318 armed men. They were armed. When the Philistines were oppressing the Jews, only Saul and Jonathan had a sword. No one else had a sword. The Jews were disarmed by their enemies, and they were actually required to take their plows and their axes to cut down trees to the Philistine smiths to grind them to sharpen them. All right? So we can look at that and say, oh, oppression from tyrants is directly committed or connected to being disarmed. All right? Jesus said, do you have a sword? They said, yes. He said, okay. If you don't have a sword, he said, get one. John the Baptist didn't tell the soldiers not to have a sword. He just said, don't defraud people. Didn't say that the army was bad. In the scriptures, if someone breaks into your house in night trying to rob you, you are permitted to kill them. And it's not a crime. If it happens in the day and you kill a thief, then it's considered murder because you can see him and you could see whether or not he had a weapon. So the principle is one of your right to self-defense. And if this lady wants to say, this Hollywood elitist wants to say that, yes, we're permitted in the scriptures to have a sword but not a gun, it's a stupid argument. It's just not intelligent. It's stupid. So concerning the Second Amendment, Donald Trump is right and the Democrats are wrong. Donald Trump's position and the Second Amendment's position on our right to keep and bear arms is just and holy, and what the Democrats are proposing is unholy. It's unrighteous. It is evil. The call to disarm American citizens or petty people anywhere in the world is unholy. It's how the Muslims were able to kill close to 1 million Christians in Armenia. They disarmed them. It's how the Nazis were able to kill Jews. They disarmed them. Okay? What the Democrats are proposing is unholy. So when I stand against the Democrat Party and I stand with President Trump, it is on the issue of child killing, but there's other issues. I'm way over on a break. I'll be right back. I'll make the next section more concise, and I promise we'll talk about Elizabeth Warren. Don't go away.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. Its teachings are good and peaceful. And those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah.
We have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace.
Islam is a religion of peace. They are not Muslims, they are monsters.
We've been told that Muslim terrorists have hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam. But Islamic art and literature tell a very different story. To know the truth, we only have to study the narrative of the founder of Islam, Muhammad, in his own words. Welcome back. All right, so I was talking with my friend. If you just joined me, I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. I was talking with my friend about supporting President Trump and just opposing the Democrats in a partisan way. So the Democrat Party is now being overtaken by socialists. And this is what I want to talk about. Socialism and communism. And there are differences. A socialist will say you can own a home. A communist will say, no, you can't have private land ownership. But a socialist will say that the government can tax your land. So really, land taxes mean that you don't own the land. If you don't pay that money to the government every year, after 2, 3, 4 years, depending on where you live, they're going to take your house. You don't really own it. You're a squatter. Okay? I'm opposed to land taxes. I think that they are fundamentally immoral. We'll talk about that another day. But they're immoral because you don't own your home. And land ownership is central to freedom in the scriptures. When the Jews came into the promised land, there was massive distribution, wide distribution of the land, and you could not lose your land outside of a walled city to bankruptcy. It would always revert to your family. Only inside of a walled city could you lose your land to bankruptcy. Wide land ownership, really important, no land taxes. That's what the scriptures are about, and the scriptures are the best form of government ever given. If you think that you can improve on what God himself said, you're insane. And I know that you don't think that. For the people in Hollywood and DC and New York who want to mock the scriptures, I laugh at them. What do you have? Karl Marx? I mean, who are you going to base your government on? Not Jesus, not Moses, Karl Marx? Really? So socialism, the premise of socialism is that government exists to redistribute wealth. Period. The premise in the scriptures of government is that government exists to suppress acts of evil through the fear of punishment. He beareth not the sword in vain. He is there to punish evil. That is the primary purpose of government in the scriptures, to suppress evil acts through the fear of punishment, and then to bring punishment with judges and elders in the gates. Build roads, yes. Have a military, yes. But it's very limited, very libertarian, if you want to use a modern word, very libertarian government. So socialism is based upon the notion that government exists to take from some people and give to others. Well, the Bible talks a lot about giving to the poor, but it's a gift. And if you don't give to the poor, it's not a criminal act. If you say, I'm not going to pay my taxes anymore, I don't want to be a part of this government plantation, you'll be punished civilly. You might be punished criminally. People are in jail right now for avoiding taxes. So that's the government using the force of the sword to redistribute wealth. And it's based also on covetousness. So it's based on a violation of the commandment, 6 days labor and the seventh day rest. God said to Adam, you're going to work by the sweat of your brow. You live by the sweat of your brow. You make your bread by the sweat of your brow. The socialist says, no, we're going to double down. You're going to live by the sweat of your brow, and so is that other guy. So is that other gal. They're going to live by the sweat of your brow. It's theft. It's greed. It's covetousness. So when I stand against the Democrat Party because of their socialist agenda, I'm remaining faithful to Christian principles, to biblical principles. And I have to say this, Republicans are almost as guilty as Democrats anyway. When it comes to redistribution of wealth, except for Ron Paul and his son Rand Paul, you could probably count on one or two hands the number of Republicans who are self-consciously saying we need to just eliminate, phase out every single government program that is involved in the redistribution of wealth, forcing people to give their labor and the fruit of their labor to someone else. Forcing. Okay? The issue is that the Republicans just aren't as bad socialists as Democrats. We've got to take a break. Come back with some quick thoughts on Elizabeth Warren's rise. Don't go away. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life. Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, What Would Mohammed Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced. Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. I'm almost out of time. Here's what I want you to think about. Good-looking people, well-dressed people, articulate people can be villains. It's the policy that matters. Elizabeth Warren believes in child killing till the day of birth and wants you to pay for it. Elizabeth Warren believes that the covenant and the sacrament of marriage as given to us by God can be swept away by her godless, perverse sexual agenda. Elizabeth Warren believes in socialism. Elizabeth Warren wants to take away fossil fuels and make us, which would end up making us like a third world country. Elizabeth Warren wants to take away your Second Amendment. Doesn't matter if she's a woman. Doesn't matter if she's rising in the polls. Doesn't matter how articulate or well-dressed she is. She is a villain. I'll be back soon.